Good morning, everybody, and it's Tamara here again. I'm hoping that you all managed to catch my video with Nick Nation, dietitian, talking all about the microbiome last night, and I'm here too this morning, about half an hour later than I intended on being. I tell you why, it's actually my anniversary today, so I spent a little bit of time with my hubby this morning, and now I'm here having a chat with you guys about men's fertility. Now, if this is something that is of really significance to you, make sure you give me some likes or some loves. And if you know someone who this would be really important for them to hear, then I would love it if you would share this around. My whole mission is to inspire as many people as I can to think about reproductive health. And if there is some way that I can be giving back and educating and helping people to empower themselves with what they can do about their reproductive health, then I've done my job. So I once learned from a great mentor of mine that sperm is a really great barometer for a guy's health. And what I learned from that is that men's reproductive health can really be reflective of how healthy their temple is to begin with. One of the most astounding things that we find in men's fertility is how poor men's fertility health, so often a poor sperm count, for example, can actually reflect some underlying health condition. It's not unusual for men who have cancer, for example, to present with no sperm, what we call azoospermia. So we know that because sperm is constantly being produced, the lifespan of a sperm is around about 3 months. So sperm is constantly being produced from germ cells. If there is something that goes wrong in the process of producing the sperm or in sustaining the sperm, then that can impact ultimately on their reproductive health, but can be a really great window into what is going on with their health. So there are 5 things, because I like 5, there are 5 things that I thought I'd touch on with regards to men's fertility today. The very first thing that I wanted to talk about is the importance of weight. We always go on so much about the impact of a woman's weight on their own fertility and also on their pregnancy health and complications and so on. But a man's weight can be as impactful on his sperm health and his reproductive outcomes. We know that fat itself can produce a lot of free radicals, so there can be a lot of free radicals, inflammatory markers that are produced in a man who is obese. We know that a man who has a big pannus, that's sort of a big amount of abdominal fat that overhangs, can create heat, and heat is really bad for sperm as well. That's why the testes hang outside the body. And we know that fat itself can produce a lot of female hormone, a lot of estrogen, which can imbalance the amount of male to female hormone and therefore can also impact on the environment in which sperm are actually being produced. So weight plays a huge impact on sperm health and ultimately reproductive outcomes. There is some great research that's been done in animal models that shows how the obesity of a man can also affect the reproductive outcomes of his offspring. So that's also something to really think about, that transgenerational effect and impact of a man being overweight. The next thing I wanted to touch base on is toxins. Sperm don't like toxins, and the sorts of toxins I'm talking about is alcohol and also cigarettes and other drugs as well. So the standard advice around alcohol consumption applies in reproductive health with men as well. No more than 2 standard drinks with a couple of alcohol-free days, and you can't save them up and have them all on Saturday night. No, definitely no more than 4 standard drinks in any one setting. And if you want to know what standard drinks are, go and Google it, but it's not a can of beer, that's more than one standard drink. So we know that sperm don't like alcohol. We know that sperm don't like the metabolites of cigarettes. And that can all impact on something called the DNA fragmentation index, or DFI. So sperm are very susceptible to these free radical hits, these oxidative hits. and that can cause damage to the DNA, which renders that particular sperm basically useless. So we know that a high DNA fragmentation index can impact on fertilization rates. It doesn't mean that children are abnormal, but it just means that that sperm are far less likely to fertilize an egg. So it's really important for us to decrease the amount of free radical hits that a sperm is actually getting. So not smoking, and also not drinking too much, and ultimately also body fat as well. So toxins are really important. This I also know to be true. Children born of men who smoke have a higher incidence of childhood cancers. So again, there's that transgenerational effect that can be overcome by really moderating toxin intake. So that's really important as well. The third thing I wanted to touch on is diet, because that is something that patients often ask me, what can we modify in my husband's diet to improve his outcome? Well, we do know that antioxidants, so the antioxidants act against the free radicals. They kind of balance them out. It's kind of like this internal war. You've got to have as many army as you do enemy. So antioxidants are really important, and that comes predominantly from our fruits and veggie intake. There is research going around about the importance of multivitamins, but as far as which ones we should be including in the diet, we don't know what combination is best. So I always say, go for the whole food. Go for the whole thing. Increase the amounts of fruits and veggies as much as you can, and take an antioxidant preparation in addition to that if a man's DNA fragmentation is high. But as far as which one, we don't really know which one is best. As long as it's got some vitamin C, some vitamin E, some magnesium, some zinc, and some selenium, we know that to be true. Garlic is also really important as well. But get it from the diet. That's where it needs to come from. All right, the fourth thing that I want to talk about is lifestyle. Now, there is a problem with being sedentary and eating lots of crap and drinking lots of alcohol and smoking, but there is also an issue with sometimes over-exercising as well. Because again, exercise increases the amount of free radicals. And the one population I see abnormalities in the sperm is actually in cyclists. Why? Because they're sitting on a hard seat for hours at a time in really tight lycra and keeping the testes really warm. That's not good for sperm health. So I always make sure that if your husband is a cyclist, he has a bit of time off the cycle, off the bike, perhaps choosing the right type of seat, but definitely checking into the DNA fragmentation. That's really, really, really important. Lifestyle as far as work. Now, I have seen some really interesting cases where men have had really bad DNA fragmentation when they're working in hot environments. So down mine shafts or around boilers as a boiler maker, those sorts of things. So heat is really, really impactful. So thinking about the type of underwear that a man might be wearing and the type of working environment that he might be working in can also affect sperm health. So really thinking about those things as well. And then as I alluded to before, the fifth thing I wanted to touch on is illness. I have had several cases in my working life where men have presented with no sperm and ultimately have been diagnosed with cancer. It's a really tragic situation, but it's always important for us to be mindful what else is going on with that man's health, looking into the possible other causes of why he might not have any sperm production. Because, as I said at the very beginning, sperm is a really great barometer for a bloke's health. And if a bloke is not well, often the first sign of not being well is something to do with his sperm quality, his quantity, which is the count, the motility, or even how the sperm look under the microscope. So hopefully those 5 things have been really helpful for your man or a man that you know who is trying to conceive. Of course, for any man who is having trouble or who might have abnormalities in the sperm count, I would highly recommend that they see a fertility specialist, someone who specializes in looking at not just the sperm itself, not just treating with IVF, but looking at the holistic picture, because it could just be an investigation and a management that actually saves their life. Have a beautiful day, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. And if you found this really valuable, please send it on to somebody that you think would really benefit from this information. Have an awesome rest of your day. See you soon.